Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking into the recent F-35 crash in Alaska.
Oh,
It's
yes.
uh,
Fake news.
it's the third one in just a year,
Yeah.
and it's really kind of reignited all the controversy surrounding this program,
Yeah, for sure.
especially, with the massive price tag and the history of this thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like we're talking cutting edge military technology here, right?
Yeah.
Stealth capabilities,
Yeah.
advanced sensors, you name it.
Hmm.
But then you see these crashes happening and it's like, is it really as reliable as it needs to be? You know?
Exactly, and that's kind of what we're here to dive into today.
Yeah.
We've got a whole bunch of sources for this deep dive.
Okay, cool.
We've got news reports about the Alaska crash itself,
Right.
some background info on the whole F-35 program,
Mm-hmm.
and even some of the criticism it's faced. Some pretty strong opinions
Oh, yeah.
from people like Elon Musk.
Well, he's never shy
No, he is not.
about sharing his thoughts.
So the big question is this jet a vital asset for national security, or is it a trillion-dollar mistake?
$1 trillion mistake? That's a good question. I think a good starting point, though,
Yeah.
is to really understand just how much this program costs.
Yeah.
I mean, the U.S. Government Accountability Office estimates the lifetime cost of the F-35 program to be over
Wow.
U.S. $2 trillion.
That is it.
To put that in perspective,
Yeah.
that's more than the entire GDP of many countries.
Wow, that is a massive number.
Yeah.
Okay.
That kind of spending demands some serious scrutiny, for sure.
Yeah, it's no wonder there's so much debate about whether it's worth it.
Right.
But before we get into all that, I think we should kind of start
Sure.
with this recent crash in Alaska.
Okay.
What happened there?
Well, it was during a routine training exercise
Right.
at Eielson Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
The pilot was forced to make a crash landing
Okay.
due to what the Air Force is calling an in-flight malfunction.
Oh, okay.
Thankfully, though, the pilot ejected safely
Okay.
and was taken to the hospital for evaluation.
That's good to hear that the pilot is okay.
Absolutely.
But man, it must have been a terrifying experience.
I can't even imagine.
Can you imagine seeing your multi-million-dollar jet just spiraling out of control?
It's like a nightmare.
There's even a video of the crash circulating online
Really?
that really captures how intense it must have been.
Oh, wow.
So,
That really underscores the risks inherent in military aviation, even with all this advanced technology.
right.
And this isn't the first time an F-35 has gone down.
No.
There have actually been 31 crashes since the program started.
31.
Yeah,
That seems like a lot for such a high-tech aircraft.
it's a lot.
Are there any common threads or patterns in these crashes that could point to bigger problems with the F-35?
It's a fix of factors, but there are some recurring concerns.
Oh.
Like take the crash in South Carolina back in September 2023.
Yeah.
In that case, a series of system failures just compounded a pilot error.
Oh, wow. What kind of system failures are we talking about?
Well, in that specific incident, the helmet-mounted display malfunctioned.
Okay.
And, this display is crucial for pilots,
Yeah.
giving them all the real-time information about the aircraft and
Yeah.
their surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
So when it failed, the pilot essentially lost their situational awareness.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't just that the radio's transponder navigation system, even the instrument landing system,
Oh, my gosh.
all failed.
So the pilot was basically flying blind.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's terrifying.
It is.
And you mentioned this was compounded by pilot error.
Right.
Do we know what role that played?
Well, the specific error wasn't disclosed, but
Okay.
it highlights a concern that's been raised before,
What that?
Is the F-35 too complex for pilots to manage effectively?
Yeah.
Especially in these high-pressure situations.
Right.
Think about it if like a simple mistake
Yeah.
can trigger a cascade of system failures. That raises serious questions about the aircraft's overall reliability
Yeah.
and the safety of the pilots who fly them.
That's a really good point.
Yeah,
And it makes those 31 crashes even more alarming.
for sure.
You'd think with all the advanced technology packed into these jets,
Right.
they'd be more reliable.
You would think so.
But these incidents, and the South Carolina crash in particular,
Yeah.
seem to suggest otherwise.
Yeah, there's another interesting detail
Okay.
about that South Carolina crash.
What's that?
The plane actually kept flying for 11 minutes after the pilot ejected.
Wait, how is that possible?
It's because of the F-35's autonomous flight control systems.
Okay.
Essentially, the plane can fly itself.
Oh, wow.
To a certain extent.
So it just kept going?
Yeah, they actually had a hard time finding the wreckage.
Really?
Because of the stealth coding.
Oh, wow.
It took 30 hours.
Stealth coding.
Yeah.
That sounds intriguing.
It is pretty cool.
What exactly is that, and how does it work?
So the stealth coating is this special material. Okay.
That absorbs radar signals,
Ah.
making the aircraft much harder to detect.
Oh, so it's like invisible to radar.
Essentially. Yeah, it's a key feature of the F-35's design.
Wow.
And one of the reasons it's considered such an advanced fighter jet.
Yeah.
But as you can see, that same technology
Right.
can also complicate recovery efforts after a crash.
So on one hand, you have this incredible technology
Right.
that makes the F-35 a formidable weapon.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it also makes it more complex and potentially less reliable.
For sure.
It seems like a real trade-off.
It is a trade-off.
Yeah.
And it's this tension,
Yeah.
between these advanced capabilities and potential vulnerabilities
Right.
that has fueled so much of the debate surrounding the F-35 program.
Right.
Some argue that the technological advantages outweigh the risks and costs.
Mm-hmm.
Others, like Elon Musk,
Yeah.
believe the program is fundamentally flawed
Okay.
and that the money could be better spent elsewhere.
Well, speaking of Elon Musk,
He's been pretty vocal in his criticism of the F-35.
he has.
He's called it, let's see if I can get this right,
I'm curious.
the worst military value for money in history.
Wow.
He's a big advocate for investing in drone technology instead.
Yeah, he is.
What are your thoughts on that? Is he onto something?
Well, Musk's critiques, while often delivered with his trademark flair,
Yeah.
do reflect a growing concern, I think,
Yeah.
about the program's cost effectiveness.
Okay, so let's unpack those cost concerns.
Sure.
We know the F-35 is often dubbed
Right.
the most expensive defense project in the U.S.
It is.
Can you break down what makes this program so expensive?
Well, we're talking about the F-35 Lightning II Joint Strike Fighter,
Okay.
developed by Lockheed Martin.
Hmm.
It's the most ambitious weapons program
Oh.
ever undertaken.
Really?
And that ambition comes with a hefty price tag.
Yeah.
We've already mentioned the estimated lifetime cost of over US $2 trillion,
Right.
which is just astronomical.
And that's not just the cost of building the jets themselves, right?
No.
What else factors into that massive price tag?
It includes research and development, production maintenance,
Oh,
upgrades the entire life cycle of the
Yeah.
program.
wow.
You're talking about thousands of highly skilled engineers,
Mm-hmm.
complex manufacturing processes,
Yeah.
ongoing software development to keep the technology up to date.
Right.
And all of that adds up.
So it's not just a matter of building a bunch of jets.
Right.
It's a long-term investment with ongoing costs
For sure.
that stretch for decades.
Yeah.
No wonder there are concerns about whether the program is sustainable in the long run.
It's a valid point. And when
Yeah.
you combine those cost concerns
Yeah.
with the crashes and reliability issues we've discussed,
Yeah.
it's understandable why some people are calling for a serious reevaluation of the
Ah.
entire F-35 program.
So where do we go from here?
That's the question, isn't it?
Is the F-35, despite its flaws, still a vital asset? Or are we pouring resources into a program that's fundamentally flawed?
It's a tough one.
What are the arguments on both sides?
Well, the F-35's proponents argue that its advanced capabilities,
Okay.
like that stealth technology we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
make it a game changer in
Mhm.
modern warfare.
You mean its ability to evade enemy radar?
Exactly.
That definitely sounds like a significant advantage in a combat situation.
It is a huge advantage.
Yeah.
And they argue that the F-35's sensor fusion capabilities,
Yeah.
which basically means it can gather and process information from multiple sensors simultaneously,
Okay.
give pilots an unparalleled level of situational awareness.
So it's not just about being invisible.
No.
It's also about having a better understanding of the battlefield
Exactly.
and your opponent.
You're right.
Oh,
They say this combination of stealth and sensor fusion
Yeah.
allows the F-35 to conduct missions
okay.
that would be impossible
Wow.
for other aircraft.
Okay.
And they point to the fact that despite its problems, the F-35 is already operational
Mhm.
in several countries, including the U.S.,
Yep.
the U.K., Israel, and Japan.
So scrapping the program entirely
Yeah.
would have major geopolitical implications.
For sure, it would disrupt alliances
Wow.
and potentially shift the balance of power in certain regions.
Okay.
But the critics,
Right.
including those like Elon Musk,
Right.
argue that the F-35 is simply too expensive
Okay.
and too unreliable to
Hmm.
justify its continued development.
They say the money could be better spent on other defense priorities,
Right.
like drones,
Uh-huh.
cyber warfare capabilities,
Yeah.
or even investing in hypersonic missiles.
Which are becoming increasingly important
Right.
in this new era.
Of great power competition.
Yeah, it's a valid argument.
Yeah, it is.
And it raises the question of whether the F-35,
Uh-huh.
despite its technological advancements,
Yeah.
is truly the best tool for the job
Hmm.
in this evolving landscape of warfare.
We're seeing this shift towards autonomous systems,
Right.
artificial intelligence,
Mhm.
and electronic warfare.
Right.
Is the F-35, with its reliance on a human pilot
Mhm.
and its vulnerability to sophisticated electronic countermeasures, already becoming obsolete?
That's a possibility we can't ignore.
Right.
The nature of warfare is changing so rapidly,
Yeah.
and it's just crucial to adapt
Yeah.
and invest in technologies that will be relevant in the future,
Yeah.
not just clinging to legacy systems,
Right.
no matter how impressive they might seem.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Good question.
Well, for starters, it highlights the importance of critical thinking
For sure.
when it comes to these big, complex issues.
Absolutely.
Don't just accept headlines or sound bites at face value.
Right. Do your own research.
Yeah. Dig deeper. Consider different perspectives and form your own informed opinions.
And remember, this isn't just some abstract debate happening in the halls of Congress.
No, it's not.
It has real-world consequences.
Exactly.
The decisions made about the F-35 program will impact national security, the defense industry, and ultimately the lives of those who serve in the military.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
That's for sure.
For sure.
And it makes you realize that behind these big, expensive weapons programs,
Right.
there are real human stories.
Absolutely.
The pilots who put their lives on the line,
Uh-huh.
the engineers who pour their hearts into designing these complex machines,
Mm-hmm.
and the taxpayers who foot the bill,
Right.
hoping that this investment will keep them safe.
It's crucial to remember those human stakes.
Absolutely.
You know, we're not just talking about abstract concepts or budgetary line items.
Yeah.
We're talking about people's lives
Yeah.
and the future of our national security.
And those are things worth caring about deeply.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as we kind of wrap up this part of our deep dive into the F-35,
Yeah.
let's bring it back to you. Given the crashes, the cost, and the controversies, what's the takeaway here? What are your thoughts?
Well, the takeaway is there's no easy answer.
Right.
The F-35 program is a microcosm of the complexities and challenges we face in the 21st century.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that technological advancements come with risks, and that even the most sophisticated systems are not infallible.
Yeah, and it also highlights the need for constant evaluation,
Absolutely.
adaptation, and a willingness to challenge assumptions.
You got it.
And perhaps most importantly,
Yeah.
it underscores the importance of engaging in informed and nuanced discussions
Yes.
about these critical issues.
Couldn't agree more.
We need to move beyond simplistic arguments and sound bites
For sure.
and really grapple with the complexities of defense spending, technological innovation, and the evolving nature of warfare.
Exactly.
Here's a final thought-provoking question for you to ponder.
Okay, hit me.
Given everything we've discussed,
Yeah.
is the F-35 program a necessary investment in national security,
Okay.
or is it time to seriously reconsider its future?
That is the question.
This question should invite the listener to consider the implications of the information discussed and form their own conclusions.
You got it.
That's a question worth wrestling with.
It is.
And as always, we encourage you to continue exploring these topics,
Yeah.
digging deeper and forming your own conclusions.
Absolutely.
We'll be back in a moment
Okay.
to continue this deep dive into the F-35.
Looking forward to it. You know, it's fascinating how this F-35 program has become this focal point for so many different debates. It's not just about the technology,
Right.
but you know how we approach national security, the role of innovation, how we allocate resources.
You're right. It's like this one program is a lens through which we can examine so many bigger issues.
It is.
And it seems like the stakes are incredibly high. We're talking about the future of air power, the defense industry, even global power dynamics.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that these decisions have real-world consequences for the people involved.
Right.
Think about the pilots, you know, who strap themselves into these jets,
Right.
trusting that this technology is going to perform as intended.
Yeah. The human side of this story, I think, often gets lost in all the
It does.
technical details and political debates. It's easy to forget that real people are putting their lives on the line
Yeah,
when they fly these missions.
exactly. And then there are the thousands of engineers and technicians
Right.
who work tirelessly to design, build, and maintain these incredibly complex aircraft.
Yeah, their expertise and dedication are crucial to this program.
Absolutely.
And their voices, I think, deserve to be heard in this debate as well.
For sure.
And of course, we can't forget about the taxpayers
Right.
who are ultimately footing the bill for this program.
Yeah, they have a right to know
Right.
that their money is being spent wisely and that the investments we're making in defense technology are truly making us safer.
It's a huge responsibility.
It is.
And that's why it's so important to have these conversations.
I agree.
Weigh the arguments, challenge assumptions. Because the decisions we make today about the F-35 program will have a lasting impact
They will.
for years to come.
So let's dive a little deeper into these arguments. We talked about the costs and the crashes.
Yeah.
But what about the F-35's actual performance?
Right.
What are its strengths and weaknesses?
Well, one of the most touted features of the F-35 is its stealth capability.
Right.
Which makes it extremely difficult for enemy radar systems to detect. This is a major advantage in modern warfare.
Huge.
Where being able to evade detection and surprise your opponent can be the difference between victory and defeat.
Absolutely.
So for the listener who may not be familiar with military technology, what does that mean in practical terms?
Sure.
Imagine you're an enemy force.
Okay.
Trying to track aircraft on your radar screen. Suddenly, this blip that you thought was a bird turns out to be an F-35.
Oh, wow.
And it's already too late.
Yeah, that's the idea.
And it's not just about evading radar.
Right.
It's about being able to operate in contested airspace.
Exactly.
Where traditional aircraft would be extremely vulnerable.
Very vulnerable.
This gives the F-35 a significant tactical advantage.
It does.
Especially in scenarios where air superiority is critical.
Absolutely. And we've also talked about sensor fusion.
Right.
Which is another key capability of the F-35.
Can you explain a bit more about how that works and why it's so important?
Think of it this way. The F-35 is like a flying computer that gathers information from all sorts of sensors, radar, infrared cameras, electronic warfare systems. And then it combines all that data into a single comprehensive picture of the battlefield.
Wow.
This allows the pilot to see things that they wouldn't be able to see with their own eyes.
Oh, wow.
And it gives them a level of situational awareness that's just unmatched.
So the pilot has this incredible 360-degree view of the battlefield.
Yeah.
Even things that are hidden from normal sight.
That's right.
That sounds like a game changer, especially in a fast-paced combat situation.
It is.
Where every second counts.
Every second counts.
And it's this combination of stealth and sensor fusion that makes the F-35 so appealing to military planners.
I can see why.
They argue that it's a force multiplier. Meaning that it can significantly enhance the effectiveness of other military assets.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the F-35 itself.
No.
It's about how it can work in conjunction with other aircraft ground troops, even naval forces.
Exactly.
To create a more powerful and integrated fighting force.
That's the goal.
And they point to the fact that the F-35 is designed to be a multi-role aircraft.
Yes.
Capable of performing a wide range of missions.
It is.
From air-to-air combat to ground attack to electronic warfare.
Yeah. A jack of all trades.
So it's like the Swiss Army knife of fighter jets, adaptable to different situations.
Yeah.
Able to take on a variety of tasks.
That's right.
That sounds pretty impressive.
It does, but of course, there's always another side to the story.
Right.
And the critics of the F-35 program argue that these capabilities come at too high a price. Both in terms of dollars and in terms of reliability.
Right. And we've already seen evidence of that in the crashes we've discussed.
Yes, we have.
Despite all the advanced technology, these jets are still prone to malfunctions and accidents.
That's true.
Right. And some argue that the focus on stealth and sensor fusion has come at the expense of other important factors.
Like what?
Like maneuverability and speed.
Okay.
They say that in a dogfight, a more agile and faster aircraft might actually have the upper hand.
So the F-35 might be great at sneaking up on its targets.
Right.
But if it gets caught in a close quarters fight, it might not be as effective.
That's the argument. And there are also concerns about the F-35's vulnerability. To sophisticated electronic countermeasures.
Electronic countermeasures.
Can you explain what that means for those of us who aren't familiar with military jargon?
Sure. Basically, it's about using electronic signals to disrupt or deceive enemy systems.
Okay.
So, for example, an enemy force might try to jam the F-35's radar
Okay.
or spoof its sensors, giving the pilot false information.
So it's like electronic warfare.
It is electronic warfare.
Trying to outsmart the F-35's sophisticated technology
Right.
with even more sophisticated technology.
Exactly. It's a constant arms race.
And the concern is that the F-35, with its reliance on complex electronic systems, might be more vulnerable to these types of attacks
It's possible.
than a simpler, more robust aircraft.
So it's a trade-off.
Yeah.
You gain these incredible capabilities with all this technology.
Right.
But you also create potential weaknesses that your enemies can exploit.
And that's why this debate about the F-35 is so complex and nuanced.
It is.
There are valid arguments on both sides. And the answers aren't always clear-cut.
It's not black and white.
There are a lot of shades of gray.
A lot of gray.
And it sounds like the future of warfare is going to be even more complex and unpredictable.
Absolutely.
Which makes these decisions about technology and strategy even more crucial.
Could not agree more.
It's not just about the technology itself. It's about how we use it, how we adapt to evolving threats, and how we ensure that our investments in defense are truly aligned with our national security goals.
I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, and all of this is happening against a backdrop of rapid technological advancement, shifting global power dynamics, and new forms of warfare emerging all the time.
It's a lot to keep up with.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is, but it's also incredibly important.
Yeah.
Because the choices we make about defense technology today will shape the world we live in for years to come.
So for the listener who's trying to make sense of all this, what are some of the key takeaways? What should they be thinking about?
Well, I think it's important to remember that there's no silver bullet when it comes to national security.
Okay.
The F-35 is a powerful tool, but it's not a solution in itself.
Right.
It's part of a larger strategy, and its effectiveness depends on how it's used, how it's integrated with other systems, and how it adapts to evolving threats.
So it's not just about having the most advanced technology.
No.
It's about having the right strategy, the right training, and the right people to make it all work.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And it's important to consider the costs.
Yes.
Not just in terms of dollars, but also in terms of potential risks and vulnerabilities.
Absolutely. Every weapon system has its strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
And it's crucial to weigh those carefully when making decisions about procurement and deployment.
And this is where critical thinking comes in.
It is.
We can't just accept the marketing hype or the political rhetoric at face value.
No, we can't.
We need to look at the evidence, consider different perspectives, and form our own informed opinions.
Right. And it's also important to be aware of our own biases and assumptions.
Right.
We all come to these issues with our own perspectives and experiences, and it's important to be open to different viewpoints, even those that challenge our own beliefs.
I think that's a really important point.
It is.
It's easy to get caught up in the emotion of these debates.
Yeah, especially when it comes to national security.
But it's crucial to step back, take a deep breath, and try to approach these issues with a clear head and an open mind.
Absolutely. And to remember that these aren't just abstract debates.
Right.
They have real-world implications for people's lives, for the future of our country, and for the kind of world we want to live in.
It's a lot to think about.
It is.
But that's what this deep dive is all about.
That's right.
Exploring these complex issues, grappling with the nuances, and hopefully coming away with a better understanding of the challenges we face.
And with a renewed appreciation for the importance of informed and engaged citizenship.
Absolutely.
Because ultimately, it's up to all of us
to
shape the future we want.
Well said. We'll be back in a moment.
Okay. Sounds good.
To continue our deep dive into the F-35 program and explore some of the alternatives and potential solutions that are being considered. So we've explored kind of the arguments for and against this F-35 program.
We have.
And it seems like there are, valid points on both sides.
Definitely.
But what happens now? I mean, is there a middle ground?
That's the question.
Are there alternatives or potential solutions that are being considered?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's one that policymakers and military strategists are grappling with right now.
Yeah.
There's no easy answer, but there are a few approaches being explored.
So let's dive into those, starting with maybe some of the less drastic options.
Sure.
Are there ways to improve the F-35 program itself?
Potentially.
To address some of the concerns about cost and reliability without scrapping the whole thing?
Absolutely. One option is to focus on like incremental improvements
Okay.
to the existing F-35 design.
So kind of like refining and optimizing the current model, ironing out the kinks,
Exactly.
making it more reliable and cost-effective.
That's the idea.
That seems like a reasonable approach.
It does, and it's one that Lockheed Martin, the company that builds the F-35, is already pursuing.
Okay.
They've been working to address some of the issues that have been raised, and they claim that the latest versions of the F-35 are significantly more reliable and capable than those earlier models.
So there's hope that this F-35 can evolve and improve over time,
There's always hope.
becoming a more mature and dependable platform.
That's the goal.
But what about those who argue that the F-35 is simply too expensive, even with these improvements? What are the alternatives being proposed?
Well, one alternative that's gaining some traction is the idea of investing more heavily in unmanned systems.
Okay.
Or drones.
Drones.
Drones have already proven to be incredibly effective in certain types of missions.
Right.
And they offer a number of advantages over traditional manned aircraft.
So for the listener who may not be familiar with military drones, can you paint a picture of what those look like and how they're used?
Yeah, imagine these sleek, unmanned aircraft soaring high above the battlefield, gathering intelligence, conducting surveillance, and even launching precision strikes.
Wow.
All without putting a human pilot at risk.
And there's that cost factor again.
Right.
Drones are generally much cheaper to operate than manned aircraft.
For sure.
Especially when you factor in the costs of training pilots and maintaining these complex systems.
So is that the answer?
Yeah.
Should we just shift all our resources to drones and phase out manned aircraft altogether?
Well, it sounds like it.
Well, it's not that simple.
Okay.
While drones are very effective in certain roles, they also have their limitations.
Okay.
They're not as versatile as manned aircraft.
Right.
And they're more vulnerable to certain types of attacks.
Okay.
Like electronic jamming.
Okay.
And there are also ethical concerns about the use of autonomous weapon systems.
Right. That whole debate about killer robots.
Right.
And the potential for unintended consequences.
Exactly. It's a very complex issue with no easy answers.
So it sounds like drones aren't a complete replacement for manned aircraft like the F-35.
Not yet, at least.
What other options are being considered?
Well, another approach is to invest in upgrading existing aircraft.
Okay.
Rather than developing these entirely new platforms.
So taking those workhorse aircraft that have been around for a while.
Right.
And giving them a technological facelift.
Exactly.
Making them more relevant in the modern battlefield.
That's the idea.
It's like a cost-effective way to extend their lifespan and get more bang for your buck.
It allows you to leverage the experience and expertise that you've already built up with those platforms. It's not starting from scratch, it's building on what you already have.
And that seems to be a theme here. Finding ways to be more efficient and strategic.
It is.
With our defense spending.
For sure.
It's not just about throwing more money at the problem. It's about making smart choices and investing in the technologies and capabilities that will give us the best return on investment.
Absolutely. And it's about recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right.
The future of air power is likely to be a mix
of
different platforms and capabilities.
So a diverse and adaptable force. Tailored to meet the specific challenges.
Exactly. And that means constantly evaluating our options, staying ahead of the technological curve, and being willing to adjust course when necessary.
Exactly. And it also means having an open and honest conversation about the costs.
For sure.
The risks and the trade-offs involved in these decisions.
Because ultimately it's about finding the right balance between innovation, affordability, and effectiveness.
And that brings us back to the listener.
Right back to the listener.
Given everything we've discussed, what should you be taking away from this deep dive into the F-35 program and the future of air power?
I think the key takeaway is that these are really complex issues with no easy answers. There are valid arguments on all sides. And it's important to approach these debates with an open mind and a willingness to consider different perspectives.
It's not about blindly supporting or opposing a particular program or technology.
No, it's not.
It's about understanding the nuances, weighing the evidence, and forming your own informed opinions.
And it's about recognizing that these decisions have real-world consequences.
Absolutely.
For our national security, for the men and women who serve in our military.
And for the future we're building together.
So as you continue to follow this story and others like it, we encourage you to stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
Couldn't agree more.
Because these conversations matter.
They do.
And your voice deserves to be heard.
It does.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the F-35.